Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky undoubtedly hoped that a military operation in the Kursk region would yield significant benefits for his country. The goal wasn't just to gain territorial advantages, but also to strategically divert Russian military attention from the heavily contested Donbas region to Kursk. However, instead of achieving this shift in focus, Russian forces have intensified their push in Donbas, further entrenching their presence in the area. Reports indicate that Russian troops have advanced towards the outskirts of Pokrovsk, a key city in eastern Ukraine. Following Ukraine's brief success in Kursk, Russian military activity has surged. According to the head of the Pokrovsk military administration, the Russian forces are now targeting the city with ballistic missiles and multiple rocket launcher systems. Additionally, the Russians are employing guided bombs and heavy artillery in a bid to take full control of the region. Pokrovsk, a city home to approximately 48,000 residents, has been severely affected by the ongoing Russian offensive. Half of the population has already fled the city due to escalating bombardments. Airstrikes have crippled vital infrastructure, including the destruction of a critical power substation, leaving large parts of the city without electricity. This blackout has also disrupted water supplies, compounding the difficulties for those who remain. The strategic significance of Pokrovsk for both Ukraine and Russia cannot be understated. The city serves as a crucial hub for Ukraine's military logistics, ensuring the flow of arms and supplies to frontline troops fighting in the eastern regions. If Pokrovsk falls into Russian hands, this vital supply route would be severed, dealing a heavy blow to Ukraine's defensive capabilities. Ukrainian forces stationed as far as Chasiv Yar and Kramatorsk could be forced to retreat if their supply lines are cut, severely undermining their ability to resist the Russian invasion. Russia, fully aware of Pokrovsk's importance, has made capturing the city a top priority in its broader campaign to consolidate gains in occupied Ukraine. Ukrainian military officials have reported facing Russian units consisting of 15 to 60 soldiers in frequent skirmishes. The troop imbalance in the region is stark, with some Ukrainian forces describing a 10-to-1 ratio in Russia's favor. This overwhelming advantage allows Russian forces to press their offensive not only in Pokrovsk, but also in neighboring areas like Selidov, which they are now attempting to capture. If successful, this would further solidify Russia's control over the region and push Ukrainian defenses into an even more precarious position. In its relentless effort to defend the remaining parts of Donbas from Russia's ongoing invasion, Ukrainian forces on the front lines continue to fire artillery at Russian positions. However, each strike they launch brings an increased risk of retaliation. To mitigate this, after every barrage, Ukrainian soldiers quickly retreat to safe positions, bracing for the inevitable counterattack. Russian forces have been known to respond with devastating airstrikes, often deploying glide bombs as part of their counteroffensive operations. On the Russian side, there are growing suspicions about Ukraine's tactical maneuvers. The relatively small Ukrainian presence in such a crucial area has led some in the Russian military to believe that a larger, more intricate plan may be in the works. The concern is that if Russian forces advance too far into Pokrovsk, Ukrainian troops could launch a surprise pincer movement from the north and south, effectively encircling Russian units. Should this happen, it could mark a turning point, allowing Ukraine to reclaim control of critical parts of Donbas. Meanwhile, several military analysts point to Ukraine's manpower crisis as a key reason for the stark imbalance of forces in Pokrovsk. This shortage has allowed Russia to make gains in nearby areas. The collapse of Ukrainian defenses in parts of Donbas has also been attributed to organizational issues, with reports of exhausted and demoralized troops struggling to hold their ground. The relentless pace of the war has taken a significant toll on Ukrainian soldiers, further complicating their ability to mount an effective defense. Another factor contributing to Ukraine's setbacks in Pokrovsk lies within the Ukrainian forces themselves. The arrival of fresh troops in the Donbas region has, in some cases, weakened rather than strengthened Ukraine's defensive lines. Experts speculate that inadequate training and insufficient morale building among these new units have hindered their effectiveness. Additionally, poor coordination of troop rotations in the Pokrovsk sector has left gaps in Ukraine's defense, allowing Russian forces to advance more easily. But Ukraine is far from passive in this conflict. President Zelensky has adjusted his strategy, focusing on securing advanced air defense systems from Western allies. This shift reflects a broader change in Ukraine's military approach, from offense to defense, as they seek to protect their remaining territory from Russian assaults. Despite this strategic shift, a pressing question lingers. Why has Ukraine not launched counterattacks into Russian territory? Earlier this year, the United States quietly included MGM-140 Army tactical missile systems in a $300 million aid package to Ukraine. With a range of up to 300 kilometers, these long-range missiles could strike deep into Russian territory. However, Washington has imposed strict limitations, prohibiting Ukraine from using ATACMS to target Russia directly. The United Kingdom, by contrast, has permitted Ukraine to use its long-range Storm Shadow missiles in the conflict. Yet, even here, the United States has reportedly pressured the UK to prevent Ukraine from deploying these weapons against Russian soil. This raises a significant question. Why is the US so adamant about restricting Ukraine's use of long-range missiles that were, after all, provided to assist in their defense? The United States has received intelligence suggesting that Russia is waiting for a specific provocation that could justify the ethical use of nuclear weapons in its view. If Ukraine were to launch a long-range missile strike, using systems like ATACMS or Storm Shadow on Russian soil, it could provide the very pretext Russia needs to deploy its nuclear arsenal. Such an escalation would be catastrophic for Ukraine and could have global consequences. This is why many experts argue that defeating Russia militarily is not the most viable solution to end the war. Instead, they believe that the only path to peace lies in bringing both Ukraine and Russia to the negotiating table. Some analysts point to Russia's recent offensive in Pokrovsk as part of a broader strategy aimed at pressuring Ukraine to reduce its attacks on the Kursk region. In addition to the military push, Russia's near-comprehensive aerial bombardment of Ukraine serves a dual purpose, crippling the country's infrastructure and discouraging further Ukrainian aggression toward Russian territory. Reports indicate that this massive strike, the largest in the history of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, cost Moscow between $1.2 billion and $1.3 billion. Despite the immense cost, the attack succeeded in destroying numerous Ukrainian infrastructure targets, including power plants and clean water supplies, further straining Ukraine's ability to defend itself. Beyond military maneuvers, Russia is also employing more covert tactics to undermine Ukraine and its Western allies. There have been efforts at sabotage and intelligence gathering against European countries supporting Ukraine, as well as a broader campaign of psychological warfare. Moscow has ramped up rhetoric suggesting that it is capable of launching attacks on Western nations, a move designed to create fear and division among Ukraine's allies and pressure Ukraine into scaling back its military efforts. Pro-Ukraine experts, however, maintain that Ukraine's successful operation in Kursk should be viewed as a strategic win. By breaking through Russian defenses in the region, Ukrainian forces managed to capture several young Russian soldiers, providing Ukraine with valuable leverage. These prisoners could be exchanged for Ukrainian citizens held by Russia, a potential diplomatic tool that underscores the operation's importance. This success has led President Zelensky to describe the Kursk incursion not just as a military victory, but as a larger political maneuver aimed at gaining advantage on multiple fronts.
Могло бы быть и лучше, и мы и хотели бы, чтобы было лучше. Правда.
Yet, Ukraine's advance in Kursk has come at a steep price. Zelensky has had to make the difficult decision to prioritize one front over another, leaving parts of Donbas, including Pokrovsk, vulnerable to Russian advances. As Russian forces close in on Pokrovsk, questions arise about whether the gains made in Kursk are worth the losses Ukraine may face in Donbas.